morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint. My name is Chris Monk, and I will be your worship associate today. This is not a congregation that celebrates a creed, but celebrates the open mind and the loving heart. We welcome people who are looking for a truth that makes sense to them, that will celebrate social justice and betterment of the world. We practice inclusiveness. No matter your race, gender, sexual orientation, ability, or disability, you are welcome here. We do have a set of principles that we do follow that you will find on our website, like the inherent worth and dignity of every person and respect for the interdependent web of all existence. If you would like to know more about us, check out our website, Facebook page, or call one of our ministers. Now for several announcements. Do you want to have the right words when talking with people who are transgender and feel bad when you don't know what to say? Join our ministers online Wednesday, June 2nd at 6 p.m. for Kindred Conversations entitled Having the Right Words in a Non-Binary World. The Zoom link is in your e-update. Next, in our lives is a new section on our e-update. Please send 1 or 2 sentences to the office about what's happening in your life. Joy or concerns are welcome. Next, our Saturday meets are on. Join us every Saturday, unless there's rain, at noon to socialize outdoors here at UUCF. Bring your own chair and a sack lunch. General Assembly this year. The annual conference for the Unitarian Universalist Association is held in June, and this year is virtual, so it is much more affordable and best for all. There is a financial aid available. You can register at uua.org. Please join us for coffee hour at 11:30 on Zoom. The code is on our website and Facebook page. We have a time of joys and concerns and always have stimulating conversations about the service. Let us begin the service now with a prelude by Jennifer Howard. We light this chalice as a symbol of the love that shines in the human heart. Please join me in reciting our covenant. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice. This morning's opening words. Joining as one people, united with others, known by name or by spirit. Joining as one people, committed to this holy work of love. We pause now to give thanks. For those who know the power of oppression, but dare to create a world where the power of love is greater still, we give thanks. For those who share when they could hoard, who speak when silence presses hard, who forgive when they could denounce, who honor truth in a sea of distraction, who make room for suffering as one more guest at the table.
Good morning. Our meditation this morning is the story of the Good Samaritan from the Gospel according to Luke. It is almost certainly a story Jesus actually used in his teaching. It comes from a time when the people of Jerusalem hated their northern neighbors, the Samaritans, who were said to be partly pagan and therefore unholy. Just then a lawyer, a Torah attorney, stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he said, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" Jesus said to him, "What is written in the law? What do you read there?" The lawyer answered, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself." Jesus said to him, "You have given the right answer. Do this and you will live." But wanting to shine a light on his own holiness, the lawyer asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell into the hands of robbers who stripped him, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Now by chance, one of our own priests was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, a teacher of our own faith, when he came to the place and saw him, he also passed by on the other side. But then a Samaritan, while traveling, came near him, and when he saw him, he was moved with pity. He went to him, bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, "Take care of him. When I come back, I will repay you whatever more you spend." "Which of these 3," said Jesus, "do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" The attorney answered, "The one who showed him mercy." Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."
The Merriam-Webster Dictionary definition of holy. Definition 1. Exalted or worthy of complete devotion as one perfect in goodness and righteousness. Definition 2. Divine. Example, for the Lord our God is holy. From Psalms chapter 99, verse 9. Definition 3. Devoted entirely to the deity or the work of the deity. Example, a holy temple, holy prophets. 4. Having a divine quality, as in holy love. Verberated as or as if sacred. Holy Scripture or holy relic. Number 5. Used as an intensive. This is a holy mess, or he was a holy terror when he drank. Often used in combination as a mild oath. Example, holy smoke.
It was the eve of World War II, 1938. Many people in Europe were fleeing the evil and the already terrible violence they knew would get worse. When it was over, 85 million people worldwide would be dead. A small group of Unitarians, probably never more than 16 people, worked in Europe helping people escape the madness. A Unitarian minister, Waitstill Sharp, who would one day serve this very church, along with his wife Martha, volunteered to help in Prague, Czechoslovakia. There were many Unitarian churches in Prague, and they would serve as a foothold for the Sharp's secretive escape conductor work. Waitstill and Martha were undercover agents, posing as the ministers of Prague's Unitarian church. Together, they led to safety thousands of artists, journalists, writers, and other dissidents, many of whom were Jewish. It was 100% cloak and dagger work, with the Gestapo watching them closely, even breaking into their office at one point. These Unitarians and their friends the Quakers helped refugees get to the only open port in Europe, Lisbon, on the coast of Portugal. From Lisbon, people could sail to safety to England if they could convince authorities to let them on the boat. It was at this gateway to safety that the Unitarian Service Committee, the USC, was born. It was born in a war from the desire to help people escape almost certain death. Like the Sharps in Czechoslovakia, the Unitarians in Portugal voluntarily left their homes and families and went to serve the desperate needs of others. There was nothing in it for these good Samaritans except great risk. And one other thing, the satisfaction, the awesome experience of knowing that they were saving other people from death. People who do good works, even though they get nothing visible from it, have always fascinated great thinkers who try to explain this seemingly irrational human behavior. After all, it has long been presumed that the first law of survival is self-preservation. But going to a Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia is not an act of self-preservation. You wouldn't think that the act of being a good Samaritan would be controversial in any way, but it is. Take the case of Jesus' half-brother James, also known as James the Just. He was a real person, not a legend. And just think, it couldn't have been easy being the brother of the great Jesus of Nazareth. All those curious people asking if Jesus was already walking on water when he was a boy at the neighborhood swimming hole. People probably came to James's house late at night asking him if he had any of Jesus' stuff they could use as a keepsake. Hi, Jim. Say, sorry to bother you so late at night, but you know that cup your brother drank from the night he was arrested? Well, that was actually a cup I loaned to your brother right before his Last Supper. If you have that, I'd really like to have it back. His disciples and I were getting together for a reunion, and we would like to use it. You see, sorry, I'm probably telling you something you already know, James. You see, we are forming a church to actually worship your brother, and we would like to use the cup as a kind of centerpiece, you know. Hey, maybe you could even be our board president now and then, or maybe the treasurer. So, could I come in and help you look for that cup? I know I'm being very irreverent, but it is to show just how easy it is for people to start worshiping symbols, ideas, and rituals, instead of doing what your chosen sage asks you to do. This happened when James was the head of the Jerusalem church. We will call it the first church of James the Just. He was called James the Just, evidently for a very good reason, because he was known for his outrageous acts of charity. It seems, though, at some point around the year 60, the members of his church were not being nice to poor people in need of help. They evidently weren't even letting them in the door. As you might guess, that upset the brother of Jesus of Nazareth. So James wrote a strongly worded letter. His letter, his epistle, admonished the early followers of Jesus to reconsider the nature of being holy. His letter eventually became part of the New Testament. In it, he wrote, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if you have faith but do not have works? Can faith save you? If a brother or sister is naked and lacks daily food, and one of you says to him, 'Go in peace, keep warm, eat your fill,' and yet you do not supply their bodily needs, what is the good of that? So faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead." James then quoted from the Hebrew Bible, as did his legendary brother, "You must love your neighbor as yourself." You wouldn't think his words would be controversial. Take care of your fellow human beings when they are hurting, and make that a part of your religion. Duh. Of course, that is what you do. But in the centuries to come, the words of James the Just would upset the Western religious world in ways that defy belief. People had very different ideas about what humans must do to take part in the holy. Some thought it was a scandal for people to even think that sinful humans could find their way to the holy by helping others. Not so surprisingly, the very powerful people who ruled the church were especially threatened by what they described with a tone of extreme disdain, works, righteousness. I can still remember my fellow divinity school students recoiling in horror when the professor talked about works, righteousness. It is as though they had never read the story of the Good Samaritan. By 1941, the Unitarians and their volunteers in Lisbon were helping thousands of refugees. The Reverend Dr. Charles Joy, the commissioner of the newly founded Unitarian Service Committee, worked in Lisbon, and he had a problem. Many of the refugees had fled their homes without identification papers they needed to cross borders. Without identification papers, many of them were at risk of being sent back to almost certain death. Even the British would not accept refugees unless they were proven to be politically safe and sound. Simple pieces of paper with the proper words on them were a gateway to life. Reverend Joy just needed a way to make those pieces of paper convincing. Call it luck, call it destiny, call it whatever you will, but something brought the refugee, Hans Ducht, to Reverend Joy. As it turned out, Hans had a key to the gateway. He was an Austrian artist who, while living in Paris during the 1930s, drew cartoons that made fun of Adolf Hitler. When the Nazis invaded Paris in 1940, political cartoonists who made fun of Hitler were not likely to live very long. Hans abandoned all he had, fled to the south of France, then to Spain, and finally, with an altered passport, into Portugal, where he met Dr. Charles Joy. Joy had already decided that what he needed for the identification paperwork was a visual image, a symbol, to represent Unitarianism to the world. Something that would help people trust the document quickly, no matter what their language, nationality, or faith. So, he asked Hans to create a symbol, a logo they could put on top of their humble but all-important paperwork. Hans chose two classical elements, a big drinking chalice and a flame. Both were ancient symbols. The chalice is the vessel of inexhaustible sustenance, and the chalice he replicated was one of the wide ones you see in museums. Such a chalice holds a lot, and when you drink from it, you have to make slurping noises, and some of the drink drips down the corners of your mouth, but you don't care because it's a good, big drink. Of course, it could hold oil too, like the oil the Good Samaritan used on the wounds of the man he saved. You know, the horn-shaped cornucopia you see at Thanksgiving with all the fruits and vegetables pouring forth? Or the communion cup that remembers the cup Jesus drank from? It's all the same symbol. It speaks about our wonderful world that has so much goodness to offer. And the flame. The flame is a symbol of the intellect, the light of reason and truth. It is about making good use of what's in the chalice. Hans put them together, the flame and the chalice, and Charles Joy put it to work immediately. Hans was so moved by the compassion of the Good Samaritans who helped him and who adopted his symbol that he wrote, "There's something that urges me to tell you how much I admire your utter self-denial and readiness to serve, to sacrifice all your time, your health, your well-being, to help, help, help. I am not what you may call a believer. But if your kind of life is the profession of your faith, then religion, ceasing to be magic and mysticism, becomes really useful. And this religion, with or without a heading, is one to which even a godless fellow like myself can say wholeheartedly, yes." The compassion for people in need, that was the holy for the refugee who created our symbol. Other gods that people thought were holy were worthless to Hans. You might reasonably ask, though, did his symbol bring power to those pieces of paper? Did it help make them a gateway to life? Or was it just a symbol? I have been persuaded that there is no such thing as just a symbol. A symbol is the distillation of some power, and it communicates its message and influence to those who are ready to understand it. The Good Samaritan, bending over the man, helping him, that too is a symbol that communicates. The flaming chalice is just a more primal and portable version of the Samaritan bending to help. Just over 500 years ago, the monk and college professor, Martin Luther, was a very busy man indeed. He had publicly rebelled against the church and its current pope by publicizing his 95 very legitimate complaints. He published them, as you may remember, by nailing them to a church door in his own Wittenberg, Germany. It was the great poet of the Middle Ages, Chaucer, who best described the corrupt church that Luther hated so much. In his Canterbury Tales, Chaucer has his priest character, the pardoner. He has him shamelessly admit, "But let me briefly make my purpose plain. I preach for nothing but for greed and gain." Luther had had enough of the corruption in the church and single-handedly started the Protestant Reformation. And Luther didn't want the Pope to have authority at all, so he claimed the Bible was the sole authority, sola scriptura. There was a problem, though. He hated one of the books of the Bible, the one written by Jesus' brother, James the Just. Or more accurately, Luther didn't like the part where James said, "Faith without works is dead." Luther called the book of James an epistle of straw. Many a theologian before Luther had denounced the belief that being nice to others could help you cozy up to God. But Luther took this denunciation one step further. He proclaimed sola fide, faith alone. Faith alone is the path to the holy. We might wonder, why was he so shook up about this works righteousness? Where's the scandal? The answer is simple, really, and very sad. In Luther's day, the dictionary definition of holy did not include people in any way. Christianity's belief in the innate sinfulness of humanity imputed to them by the supposed sins of Adam and Eve, that belief automatically excluded the possibility that people could do anything to be holy. Sadly enough, thanks in large part to good old St. Augustine, Luther, and John Calvin after him were stuck with a theology that ignored the wisdom of the founder, Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus kept it simple. Oh, you want to be holy? See what that Good Samaritan did? Go and do likewise. Apparently Jesus, though, was guilty of believing in works righteousness. As if to prove his belief that good works and compassion for others was not a holy thing, Luther became a poster boy for how to hate Jews and poor people. Set fire to the Jewish synagogues and schools, Martin Luther recommended. He said Jewish houses should be razed and destroyed, and Jewish prayer books and Talmudic writings in which such idolatry, lies, cursing, and blasphemy are taught should be taken from them. Then, When the impoverished, starving peasants of Germany demanded their fair treatment and rebelled, Luther recommended they must be sliced, choked, stabbed, secretly and publicly by those who can, like one must kill a rabid dog. Some 100,000 poor people died in the Poor People's Rebellion, in part because Luther urged his powerful princely friends to kill the dogs. Other famous Protestant reformers, Zwingli, Munzer, they sided with the peasants and helped them fight for their lives, but not Luther. Yes, Luther admitted the peasants had problems, but he urged them to prioritize spiritual consolation over seeking earthly reform. That would be like telling World War II refugees to stop worrying about Hitler. Don't worry, if he kills you, you'll go to heaven. Stop being such big babies. If St. James could have written a strongly worded letter to Martin Luther, he certainly would have said, Luther, if a brother or sister is naked and lacks daily food, and you say to them, go in peace, keep warm, and eat your fill, and you do not supply their bodily needs, what good is that? Mr. Luther, faith by itself, if it has no works, is dead. What happens when any religion ignores the holiness of compassion? Scholars have long noted that Hitler made good use of Luther's hatred for the Jews. The Nazis used Hitler's anti-Semitism at the very beginning of the National Socialist movement and used it to Nazify a racist faction of German Christians. It is very likely that Luther partly enabled the culture of anti-Semitism that made the Holocaust possible. Some defend Luther, saying he was just a man of his day. He should be left alone. His was a complicated world, and you should not judge him. But even if we believe that argument, we can still truthfully say the man who started the Reformation was no good Samaritan. When compassion for others is not seen as a gateway to the holy, Katie bar the door. Many churches who claim that Luther is their founder have denounced his sins. In fact, in many Lutheran churches, he is now a very useful object lesson about the many failures of Christianity. The main, not just a symbol, of Unitarian Universalism, the flaming chalice, was born in Earth's most horrific war. That figures. Nothing shows the nature of the holy like an unholy war. It is a symbol not of a god or an idea, but of compassion and serving others. And that is the exact opposite of a war. The Torah attorney who argued with Jesus so long ago, his way of loving the Lord your God with all his heart and with all his soul and with all his strength and with all his mind, that was a beautiful thing. Luther showed he thought the same way when he said, faith alone is the path to the holy. It's a common way to worship, of course, a common idea, and you might call it the front door to holiness. It's often adorned with beautiful symbols, ornate woodwork, and reverence for an ethereal God. But if that is all a religion has to offer, history proves people need to be careful. I think you can make a good case that the best entrance to the holy is through the side door. There are often garbage cans at the side door, snow shovels, bags of salt. It's not pretty, a bit messy, as is life. To get through this door, you first have to deal with some of life's big problems. There are Samaritans hanging out there, probably in need of a shower, and with their religion you don't care for. There are also people of other races at the door, people so poor they are on the verge of rebellion, some of them beaten up and in need of help. You don't have to go to Nazi-occupied Czechoslovakia to find such people. Bandaging other people's wounds rather than passing them by is a perfect gateway to the holy, messy though it may be. Lucky for us, we can heal some wounds by sacrificing our money and time and energy instead of risking our lives. Compassion for another opens a person's heart to the awesome experience of serving, even saving someone. Maybe entering the holy is just that simple. Humans filled with empathy for others to the point they realize we are all connected. Let us go and do likewise.
I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, bright blessed day and the dark sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, they're also in the faces of the people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, now watch them grow. They'll learn so much more than I will ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Dan. Our time for generosity. There used to be 3 reasons why making an offering to UUCF was the right thing to do. First, your gift demonstrates your support for the values and messages we share with this community. Second, your gift makes you a part of the larger group whose gifts strengthen our faith community. 3, it's easy to do. Go online at uuflint.org or send a check to the church office. And now there is a 4th good reason. You can now make a gift in honor or in memory of someone online as well. We hope you'll consider remembering someone in this way while supporting your congregation. And thank you for all the many ways you give to UUCF.
Our closing words are those of Thich Nhat Hanh. Our true home is in the present moment. To live in the present moment is a miracle. The miracle is not to walk on water. The miracle is to walk on the green earth in the present moment, to appreciate the peace and beauty that are available now. Let us go in peace.
Please join me in extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.